Namaste and welcome to third part of Flutter Calendar updated tutorial. In this updated series, we have been looking at how to customize calendar, then adding events, events crewed like viewing, listing, deleting, editing events, and then we are able to list the event markers in our calendar. This is where we left off in the last part. Now, in this episode, we are going to optimize our Firestore query. Right now, what we are doing is we are loading all the events for a particular user whenever our calendar loads. That is not what we want. We want to optimize this query because we all know Firestore charges us for read queries and write queries. So we want queries to be as efficient as possible. So in order to optimize our query, what we need to do is we need to know the starting date and end date in the visual calendar so that we can load only the events between those dates and optimize our calendar. So let us set up few variables in our home.dart file where we are displaying our calendar, listing our events. Here, date time. Let's set up today, date time first, date, last date. So we'll only load the events between this first date and last date. However, now we need to know the value of first date and last date. Let us first initially set up the value of first date and last date. Now date time.now. Right now our initial calendar format is monthly calendar. So what we can set up is we can set up the initial first date and last date as the first of the month and last of this month. Before that, I'd like to create some utilities functions. So inside core presentation rest folder, create a file called utils.dart. In here, I'll bring in some helper functions that I have created to manipulate date. So here I have three functions. First one is the beginning of day. So this will get the beginning of day of any date, that is 000, time is 000. And second one is end of day, that is time is set to 23:59:59. And then finally last day of month. We can calculate the last day of month by using this function. You can check out these functions in the GitHub repository that I'll share the link in the description. So once we have these utilities, now we can go back to setting up our home page. So first, initially our first date will be beginning of day and date will be date time, month and one. So first day of month. Then last date will be end of day, last day of month today. Okay, this will be our first date and last date initially. Let us hot restart so that this init state takes into effect. Once we do that, now let us add our query options here. So here, so our field is date and is greater than or equal to first date dot milliseconds since epoch, and let's duplicate this is less than or equal to last date dot milliseconds since epoch. Now if we hot restart, we should get some error in the debug console. So the error is we need to create an index first. So if you run this query for the first time, we need to create an index, and that you can do by clicking on the link that is displayed in the error here in the console. So let us tap this link, open. Once this is opened, this will take us to the create index link. Once you tap create index, the index will start building. It will take some time to build the index, and if you have more data, it will take more time to build the index. However, after you have completed building the index, you can go back and run the project to make it work. Let us wait until this completes. Once the index building is completed, we can see that events, the status as enabled. Now if we go back to our code and hot restart, it should load our events. Okay, see, now we can see that our events is loaded. So if I tap on December 5, I can see the events, and here as well. However, now if I go to previous month, still December 1 is visible, so we can see the event. However, our event for November is not loaded. So what can we do? Table calendar provides us with another method called on visible days changed. Okay. Here on visible days changed, and here we get first, last, and format, calendar format. So we get the first date, last date, and calendar format. So here what we can do, set state, first date equals beginning of day first, last date equals end of day last. So whenever we switch calendar months or calendar days, this function will get called, and here we are setting the first date and last date again. So our events should be loaded for the next month. So when I go back to November, it should load the event for November. Let's try it. Not yet working. Let me hot restart. Okay. Now we can see that event for December 18 is loaded. And if I now come here, select, let's say, December 23rd and switch to November, though our December 23rd is selected and it has an event, we'll not be able to see that event. This is because our event is only loaded for these visible days. Now if I tap December 5 and go back, I can still see the selected events. That is because December 5 is still visible in this calendar. Now our Firestore query is optimized. That is, we are only loading the events for the visible days in the calendar. However, there is one issue, that is, let's say for example, if I select December 23rd here, I can list the event for December 23rd. Now if I switch to November, our event for December goes away, and though December 23rd is selected, we cannot see the events present on that day. In order to fix this, what we can do, one, we can load events of maybe few months more than visible days, or next, whenever calendar changes, we can set the selected day as null so that we'll not see any selected date, and we can tell here that currently selected date is null. That is what we can do. That's for query optimization. Now, the next most requested question regarding calendar tutorial was adding durations. So events that span multiple days. I've got lots of questions, comments regarding that. So now we'll tackle that. So in order for events to span multiple days or events to be added in the multiple days, what we can do is in the events, we can add another parameter called inDate. So the first day of the event or first date that we are already selecting here, this will be considered as the start date of the event. And if the inDate is not provided, that event will be a single day event. However, if inDate is provided, then we can say that this event will span from this start date to inDate, and we'll see how we can display those events marker in the calendar, events with start date and inDate in the calendar. So first, let us go to add event page and add our inDate field. So here in the add event calendar, let us duplicate the date field. So here let us duplicate this field. This is date, right? So first is for validator, this is not required. However, we'll write a custom validation here that I'll show in a bit. Let's just set up few things. The name will be int date, and field hint text, this is not visible. So in decoration, we are providing decoration hint text int date. Let's make it optional. Okay, so if I clear this date, I can see int date and it's optional. Next thing we want to do, we want int date also to be saved as milliseconds. So here let us duplicate this and let's make this int date, and if use a null operator here so that whenever int date is null, this will not throw an error. Now we have int date. Let us go to our app event.dart file and here add another called final date time int date, and let us use again same generate dart class option, and it generates the required parameters. Here we just need to fix our from ds method. So let us copy this and let us add it here, and this field should be int underscore date, right? So we have our app event model also set up that will read the int date, and here we are adding the int date. So let us write the validation. What we want to validate in the int date is that int date can be null. So if return, if value is null, then return null, that we don't want to show any errors. Let's create a variable called start date that will get the value of the date field. So we can get the value of date field as form key dot current state dot fields date dot value. So this can be null. So we'll take this as date time milliseconds since epoch. So we'll get this start date as milliseconds since epoch. Now what we do, if start date equals null, we want to return null because it will already be validated by our date field validator. But if not, if start date is greater than val dot milliseconds in epoch. So if start date is greater than our selected end date, then we want to show error. Return cannot be start date. So in date cannot be before start date, right? Finally, if nothing else, return null. Okay, so we have a proper validation for our end date as well. Now let us add an event also for initial value. So initial value should be, we can simply write dot event dot end date. That is, if it is null, we don't care, it can be null. So we have the initial value as well. So let us create our event with end date. Let us just select the start date as December, let's say December 8 today, and end date will be, let's say, December 29. Let us save it. Okay. So we are being unable to load this. This is because we have some error in our event model. So in app event, we forgot to consider that our end date can be null. So here we need to check that. So map date not equal to null, then we do this. If it is null, then null. So now our event will load. We can see that our event with end date is here. However, we are only viewing the event marker in the December 8. Now if we edit, we can know that this event goes from December 8 to December 29. So what we'd like to do is, we'd like to add an event marker from December 8 to December 29 for this event. Let us see how we can do that. So let's go back to our home.dart and let's update our group events function. So our event marker is displayed by using this grouped event. So what we can do is, whenever we are grouping our event, we can check if the event has a end date. And if that event has an end date, we can loop through the start date and end date and add that event in each and every dates in between that, so that events marker are displayed for each day. Let us see how we can do that. It is better demonstrated with code. So if event dot end date is not equal to null, else we want to do whatever we are doing here. And we may need this date before, right? And let's also set up end date as here, end date as C event end date dot right. So we have the start date and end date. What we want now is, we want to loop from start date and end date, and each time add one day to the date and add the event to each date. So let's see how we can do that. So we'll use a for var I equals date. Okay, and I dot milliseconds since epoch is less than or equal to in date dot milliseconds since epoch, and finally I equals I dot add duration days 1. So we want to add 1 day in each iteration of the loop. Now here we can simply copy this, and instead of date we can use I. So now we can see that we have two events that are repeating. Now we can see our code is working, that we have some events that are repeating. So we can check that. So we have a test event that repeats from December 1st to December 16, and we have another event that repeats from December 8 to December 29. So from 8 to 16 we see two events marker, that is both of these are repeating. And then if we go to 21 we can see only this, and if we go to December 1st we can see only this event. So this is how we can make event span multiple days and display the marker in the calendar. However, let us delete this event for now, one repeating event. Next, let us delete this as well. I'll show you the one problem with this. So let me add an event that starts in November, let's say November 25, and that ends in December 8. Okay, Nov 25 to December 8. Just adding the title here. Now if I save, if I go back to November, we can see that it is repeating from 25 to December 4, right? But if we come to December, so if we are in November we can see the repeating event, but whenever we go to December it vanishes. This is because of our query optimization. Here what we are doing is we are only loading the events that have the starting date greater than or equal to the visible first date. However, the starting date is less than the visible first date. It is started in November, but the end date was after December. So in order to fix this, Firestore doesn't provide us with multiple queries, that is multiple queries with multiple fields that use greater than or equal to. So we cannot add another query that checks for in date that is less than or equal to currently visible last date. So in order to fix that, what we can do is we can give up little bit of our optimization, that is we can load the events that are, let's say, first date dot subtract duration days 30 and last date dot add days 30. So what this will do is it will load the events that are 30 days older from the currently visible days as well as 30 days in future from the currently visible date. Now we can see the same repeating event from November as well in our December calendar. And this how old events to load and how many days in the future to load depends on how long the event duration can be in your application. So this works only if the event repeating duration can be less than or equal to 30 days. If event duration can be more than 30 days, you can add those days here so that we'll load more event days, more event than visible calendar, and it works. So this is how we can create events that span multiple days or that can repeat multiple days and display the event marker properly in our calendar. Thank you everyone for watching this tutorial. Also, please send your queries, send your feedback, and send more queries as what kind of other information or other applications that you want regarding calendar and Flutter, so that I can add more functionalities and I can demonstrate how we can achieve those functionalities. Thank you everyone. See you again in next episode.